Hey everybody, how you doing? I've had a couple questions about how I set up my custom cameras here in iRacing, so I thought I'd throw some tutorials together. It's not going to be long ones. I'll kind of address the cameras individually as we go along. Maybe this will turn into a little bit of a series. When I'm making custom cameras or adjusting my cameras, I prefer to work with a replay. So pick a race car and a track. Go to that track, take a couple laps, save that as a replay. Then open up that replay and we'll continue from there. Alright, so here we are in our replay. And if you come down here to the menu, I have it paused. Under TV1 here, you hit this drop down menu arrow, if you will, the up arrow. That brings up all the cameras that are available here that iRacing provides you. They are split up between the track and the car. So nose, gearbox, roll bar, suspension, gyro, suspension, cockpit. All of these are car specific, which when we get these set, these will hold with the car from track to track, which is really cool, so you don't have to change it for each individual track. From blimp on down here, these are all the TV cameras. These you will have to set for every track, because as you can imagine, every track has a different configuration. First things first, we need to access the camera editing program. You do that on your keyboard by accessing Control-C, and that brings up the camera editing menu. Now, if your camera edit shows up as mine does, you can see the tabs barely underneath here. Camera, group, and config, you can't access them. If you need to move this, same thing as in the cockpit. Alt-K highlights it, then you can grab it with your mouse and move it off to the side. Alright, let's do a brief overview of the camera edit menu here. You have the TV cam name, you position, fixed, blimp, chopper, a whole bunch of options here. The aim type, this one's usually one that you use quite often. It's at group, static, or at car. Static is the camera doesn't move or follow the vehicle. At car gives you a little bit tighter of a grouping on your car, whereas at group, the camera tries to keep 2 or 3 cars in your immediate proximity within reason in the shot. Limit shots of range, you usually want to have that checked. We'll get into that later. Set start and set end, that is how you set the timing on the cameras, specifically the TV cameras. Dampen camera, if you have this checked, you will not get shake. And that comes down here, there's shake. So if you have a speed shot and you want to have that camera shake as the cars roll by at 200 miles an hour, you can have it shake like an earthquake. Okay. Beyond fence, I don't think that actually does anything. I've seen. Parabolic unit, if you have this checked, as the vehicle screams by the camera, you get the Doppler effect. Or if you have it unchecked, then you get the raw sound as the camera is collecting it from the venue. You can distort the microphone. I don't use that. Zoom, pretty self-explanatory. When you have the zoom level set, the camera tries to keep the car roughly the same size in the field of view, no matter how far away from the camera the car is. When you select static, the car will appear smaller at greater distances and right up in your face at closer distances relative to the camera. Exposure, pretty self-explanatory. Shake we covered. Vanish X, you can move the camera left or right, depending on the shot you want. Vanish Y is up and down. Near plane bias, the closer the camera is to objects in the iRacing world, if you have this set really low, these may disappear and then appear in your shot, and you use this near plane bias to fix that. This pole might not be drawn, but then as the truck sweeps by it and the camera follows the truck, the pole will get drawn as it comes into the view. That's kind of messy, so you adjust this near plane bias in order to fill that in. Now, the negative is the lower that you have this near plane bias in order to fill in this near object, near to the camera position, what you see in the background, especially on the vehicles, will appear kind of fuzzy or flashy. Mic gain, this is how you adjust the volume that the camera hears. Down here, camera view live. Up here we have type position fixed. I usually leave those alone with each specific camera as it comes up. Step factor is how fast the camera moves when you adjust it. Key acceleration is much like you've seen on other things where you press a button in order to make something move, and then a few seconds later it exponentially moves even faster. You can adjust that to your liking. Up here you have your axis that changes the position of the camera. Since we are at group, orient, pitch, and rotate are grayed out. That is not an option when you're at the group. However, if you go to static, you see they become highlighted. We'll get into using the axis buttons here to move the cameras around with each specific camera as we get to it in this little series. Gonna come over here to the group tab real quick. Use temporary edits. I suggest you never check this. If you have this box checked, any changes you make to a camera will hold for the duration of the session, and once you back out of iRacing, then any attempt at making a change in a camera file at any track will take for that session but not be saved. And this happened to me one time, and I believe you cannot even save a change. So I suggest you don't check this and just leave it unchecked. That way any change that you make to any camera after you've saved it will be saved. Just above use temporary edits, you see enable automatic shot selection. Always leave that checked. That's primarily for use with the TV cameras, and when you set the timing between two cameras, when you have enable automatic shot selection checkmarked, it kind of blends those together so it's not such a harsh cut. So always leave that checked. Underneath the active header are the cameras that are in use for each specific TV camera grouping, and then over to the right under available are all of the cameras that iRacing provides, and that's where the ones that you create will also be stored, and we'll get into that later with the TV camera creations. Back over to the camera real quick here. You see we have load track, save track, load car, save car. We will use these later on after we've made some edits, and then we will save the track or save the car, and then everything will be saved unless you have that use temporary edits check marked. Alright, we're going to move over and select the config button real quick. This is just the key maps that you can use to, while in game or during the replay, adjust the zooms, the yaws, the pitches, the rolls. I really don't use these a whole lot, but this is where that stuff is stored. So that's an overview of how to access the camera editing folder program so you can make some custom cameras. I'll get into each specific camera a little bit more in depth as I roll through this series. If you found this video or any of the others, I will have all of these custom camera tutorials in a dedicated playlist. Go to my channel, look for the playlist, iRacing custom camera tutorials, and see what I have there. Alright, that's all I've got for you today, guys. Thanks for coming along for the ride.